Building a Second Brain, BASB, from Tiago Forte. They have their first, I believe, first like in-person conference coming up in, where is it, LA, I want to say.
Yes. No, California, yeah. California.
Yes. Yeah, and I have debated whether or not to go. I'm not
Mm,
sure.
so
I'm like, do I? Don't know. Because I mean, I know it's going to be a popular conference, and I know there's going to be lots of sort of familiar faces that go,
yeah.
but I don't know why I would go. That's my struggle point right now. Can you
Honestly,
relate?
it's in most conferences for me these days. Most of the time, the reason why I want to go to a conference is to meet with other people and to have conversations and to do all those things, like we were saying in last week's episode. Of like just having the conversations is the bit that I'd be interested in. But flying half the way around the world, I suppose, to have one. Well, it's not even halfway around the world. Whatever. Flying to LA just to have conversations you can have online.
Yeah.
If it was like Berlin, where and also where the conversations are not really had online in any way near as much as it is in person, then it's different, isn't it? But for something this uh, popular,
I think the thing that puts me off the most is I went to a BSB meetup in London 2 years ago now, I think,
mm,
and it was what I expected. It was lots of people that are sort of new, familiar with, essentially enthusiasts of the BASB. But
mm,
being an enthusiast of an approach and being able to discuss the approach in detail are drastically different things. And from my experience with those people that were there, a lot of them were there more as, I guess, fans of the approach rather than practitioners of the approach. Like, oh yeah, I'm going into the next cohort, or I took the cohort a few years ago, but I've struggled, and now I'm reading the book, and now I'm thinking about this idea. And oh, have you heard about Obsidian? Yes, I've been using it for a year. Oh, what's your experience of it? And I found it to be very um, storytelling. Like I'm telling my story a few times, and then people ask me questions, and I don't know whether it was my communication or other people's lack of willingness potentially to communicate their own experiences, but it was very much a they went to ask Tiago questions, which is understandable, which isn't what I would want if I go to America. I don't want to be there to talk to people that want to ask Tiago questions.
yeah, I'd want to go there. But yeah,
I think it relates to the conversation we were literally just having off recording. Is there are depths at which you can have conversations. There are levels of expertise at which you can have a conversation about a topic. And
mm,
if you're at level one, however you arbitrarily define that, there is a limited amount of information that you can attune your attention to, you can attune to, so the conversation is going to be shallow. And for someone like myself that is familiar with the philosophy, familiar with the science, and very familiar with terminology that goes beyond traditional views, i.e.,
yeah,
the ecological approach, if I go in and say, hey, I don't think extended cognition is accurate because we're embedded and embodied in our environment. I I imagine that's going to go straight in one ear and out the other ear of a lot of people there, which
mm,
begs the question, what am I going to get out of that conversation apart from speaking with people that have less expertise in my area of expertise? And that's my friction point right now, because I know it's going to be a big thing. It could be quite fun to speak with people that are in that area of expertise, like Thomas Frank, August Bradley. Like they don't take the ecological approach, to my understanding, but August is familiar with systems theory. How much of that is embedded within ecological psychology, I have my doubts, but that would be an interesting conversation to be had. If
yeah,
Nick
it
if
would
Nick
be
Milo goes,
interesting to have these conversations with the people who are doing the thing.
exactly, Nick Milo goes, same sorts of thing. We differ, but his theories around emergence differs from my theories because he uses engrams, which I don't believe exist because we haven't found proof that they exist. It's all theoretical. So that conversation again would be an interesting one to
It would be
have.
interesting because then you can have that in person, that interaction instead of it being online.
It would
And
be in
sometimes,
an embedded environment.
yeah,
And I feel like those are the conversations I would go for. But I don't know. how much of those conversations I would be able to have because they are big names, they are big faces, and they will be
Hounded.
fandom.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Thomas Frank. I've been watching you since I was however many old, or listening to you since however many. And how do you manage the million subscribers? Or Tiago, oh, your course is amazing. I did cohort, blah, blah, blah. And I want to tell you my experience. And there's going to be hundreds of people that want to do that, understandably. And will there be an element of that for me? No, because I've spoken with them. But there was to start with. But that's something that I personally know as a creator myself, albeit a much smaller creator. I'm just a person. I go on Zoom calls sometimes with people that book on their schedule, and they're like, so weird seeing you like in person. I know it's not in person, but like you're not a video. I feel like I know you. I'm like, I have no idea who you are. Like, they've watched hours of me. I first time I've
Paris.
met them. Exactly. So going to the conference, I just want to talk to the people that have expertise and have like the behind the scenes conversation almost. I
Yeah,
want the
that no one wants to watch.
yeah, I want the
Yeah.
breakout room where we're talking shop, as it were.
Yeah. The,
I want to talk shop with those people. And I'm not when I say talking shop, I'm not specifically talking about business and money. I'm
mm,
talking the philosophy behind the actions. Why are they doing it that way? What are the beliefs that uphold their choices and actions, their decision making, their problem solving? Because I feel like a lot of them are going to be similar. And getting into the nitty-gritty of those things is fun. Those things are where I feel I would want to go.
yeah.
But if I only get 10 minutes of that, I don't think it's worth the money.
No, because it's not cheap to travel. And it's a lot of work just being on the plane. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because that's the thing that I think for me, as I've gained expertise in business and learning more about the business world and disagreeing with the philosophy of most of it now. Cheers, Danny.
That's all right.
It's become harder and harder to be in this conversation. And the things that I enjoyed. So I recently went to the Big Fest 2, which was fantastic. It was nice, but not because of what was spoken about, but it was the small snippets of conversation. I mean, I really need to figure out my. Like, there were other problems that meant I didn't get as much as I could have. That I need to figure out because it was a new experience, first time going here. So that was fun. It was a loud thing, so that was also fun. So I need to figure that out for next time. But it was really interesting because of the small snippets of conversations I had with other people and talking and hearing what they're struggling with and learning about why they do what they do and what they do. And then that's the bit I like. Now, in business, I think that happens a little bit more than in the BASA,
As
BASB space. Because although everyone is kind of wanting to get something out of their business, like for their business, also there is that aspect of like community within the conference, especially the Big Festing. The Big Festing was very much probably the best out of the UK conferences, business conferences that I've been to. That was about community, not about like business. It was about the business community, which I thought was really, I enjoyed that. Got to figure out the ear thing so I can actually do it without falling over most of the time.
that's another thing.
That's a whole other thing. But that I felt was really cool. But yeah, with the BASB, the BASB, I mean, I
Mm,
could travel. I can travel up to Bolton and not get very much deliverable information for me. But I wasn't going up there for the information. I was going up there to have conversations.
yeah, and I think this is where, as we were discussing previously last week, the communication and the ecological approach to conferences is far more interesting for
Mm,
me. But
mm,
that's not a conference. That's a
no.
community.
Mm,
And I hear lots of people say, "Oh, I have a community. I've built a community in Discord, in Circle, in Facebook, in wherever, Twitter Spaces." But it's not really a community. It's more of a list of people that are interested in something, I find most of the time.
yeah.
It's like, hey, I have a 2,000 people community. No, you have a list of 2,000 people that are interested in something. How many active members are there in said community? And I,
Mm,
I think that for me is what's missing in a lot of community. And the communities that are semi active, it's because they're paying for it. It's like, well, I paid this person X amount of money for them to coach me to do the thing. So I'm going to show up, I'm going to get feedback on this thing, and I'm going to get better. I want instruction on how to get better. It's not like, as I described off recording, it's not like an academic webinar where, okay, here's a paper, here's a pre-reading. We're going to discuss this paper in this call. There's no constraints or directions in the task for the conversation, which when you look at the Notion Made Simple Facebook group that I was in years ago, there were conversations like, oh yeah, look, this is how I'm using Notion. This is what I'm doing with Notion. So it was sort of guide the conversation. And then it just turned into buy my template, look at my template, here's my template. I'm like, fuck off. And there wasn't any constraints by admins on what conversations were to be had. And I feel like that's what BASB is going to be, like the conference is going to be. It's just going to be, hey, building a second brain, Tiago Forte, Para, Evernote, maybe Obsidian here and there, bit of Notion here and there, Thomas Frank. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be anything deeper than the obvious, and I don't think the conversations will go enough into the nuances that I would want to see in a community conversation.
And that's the thing. A bigger question here is, can a conference actually go into nuance?
I would
By
say
just-
yes. I would say yes. From what we were saying last
Yeah.
week, yes, you have the membership, the whatever, the masterminds, or the all the different words you can put on for conferences, all the different ways you can do it. It's practice design. And I think in a conference, I know Tiago tweeted a while ago about what activities were good, but obviously good, depending on how you're measuring that. Again, thinking about timescales, what is good? Is it good for that minute, that conversation, that session, that week, that month, that practice year of periodization? Like, what measured metric are you saying this is a good activity? And obviously that's going to depend on the perspective at which you take as well, referring to fractals here, reference to last week. I could probably share the article. Actually, no, I won't do that. If you're interested, you can find it. It's not difficult to find when you look up for fractal self-organization. I think it's an '03 paper if you want a year for it, but yeah, 2003. So it's not like old. But yeah, so when it comes to the conversations and conferences, the activities I feel could be practice design. It could be split up into conversation on your table, talk about said thing, and then we come back and do something else, figure something else out. Or what I really liked at university is just have a debate. Ask the audience how they would do something, and the coach provocatively, deliberately disagrees. I did that all the time when I was coaching. Even though I agreed with the person's point, I would argue for the other side for the sake of argument.
I annoy my son with that so much, because he jumps to a conclusion of what I want, and then I say the exact opposite to see why. And it's just
Do you have an
why?
evidence for your behavior, or are you just doing it because you think that's the answer?
Yeah. And it's like, well, yeah. I said, well, what if it isn't the answer? What then?
Yeah.
And it's really interesting to see the kind of.
I mean, this to me is where the ecological approach, differential learning, all of the science behind it, it just makes sense. And a great example of this, I was reading about, I can't remember what sport it was. I want to say volleyball, but it could have been golf. It might even have been tennis. I don't remember. It was a sport. Essentially, what the coach did is, or what I shouldn't say coach, what the academics did, because it was a study, is they had three groups: a control group where they were practicing things, another group where they were given instructions, they had to follow the instructions to get it right. It was golf, I remembered now. And there was another group, and they were told to do the wrong thing. They were deliberately told to do the wrong thing. And what they found is that when they were tested on the golf swing again, the control group didn't really improve much. The instruction group improved, and the group that were told to do the wrong thing also improved. So the instruction and the told to do the wrong thing both improved. But what was more interesting is when they were asked to do a different type of swing, a different type of movement, the instruction group was the same as the control. But the group that were told to do the wrong thing had improved. They had
Yeah.
improved at two things that they were told how not to do. So telling someone how not to do something and giving them essentially lots of failures at performing something educates their attention on education, attention, and intention on their behavior to perform the whatever movement it is better. So they got better by making mistakes. Shock. Who who would have thought? So when you then apply that into a conference setting, someone says, "Oh, this is how you do the thing." Great, yeah, 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 all good. Okay. Well, this is how not to do the thing. Or why isn't it this thing? Why can't it be this thing? And then you have to educate your attention and intention on the information you're paying attention to. And when we're talking about information in conversation, that's the evidence, that's the rationale, that's the support, that's the empirical evidence or the philosophy and the beliefs you hold that build up your points of your arguments, your claims. If you don't have a solid standing on that, one, you feel like a failure because you've made the mistake, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
And two, you then are shown where your lack of explanation might be. That doesn't mean you don't know what you're doing or you don't know how you're how to do the thing. You might be really good at it, but your knowledge about the information may be lacking. Therefore, your knowledge of may differ from your knowledge about. Therefore, what instructions the instructions you're giving to other people knowledge about may not actually represent what you're doing yourself, which means your instructions are ineffective. That to me is poor practice as one, a coach and educator, but two, as, and it's going to sound harsh, as a person. You're not being integral to your behavior because you're preaching something you're not doing.
Yeah.
Practice what you preach and preach
Yeah.
what you practice. They are the same thing.
Yeah.
Don't tell people to do something if you're not doing it yourself. But if you're telling people to do something and you haven't actually critically challenged what it is that you're saying in comparison to what it is that you're doing, then to me, there's an issue there. And that is where that is the conversation I would want to see at the conferences. But I don't think that's going to happen. That's my skeptical view.
Yeah, it's too scary, isn't it? It's so scary. It goes back to our whole conversation like a while ago about moving away from our brain does this to I do this. It's that vulnerability of being able to say, yeah, well, shit,
I'm wrong.
I'm wrong. I
Yep.
got it wrong. We're doing this wrong. We're doing that wrong. And it's about creating those safe spaces, which, especially in the business, like I'm thinking from the business perspective, and also kind of anywhere really, but labels, whatever. That is so hard to be able to go, yeah, no, I messed up. I fucked up. My whole business needs to shut down and start again and restart and do this and do that. Like, my tech is a mess because even though I'm a tech person, it's like, well, you shouldn't do that. Well, why? Why
Yep.
can't I? Because there are reasons, and understanding those like issues down on the ground when you're there creates those different ways of working that are interesting and actually, yeah.
I feel like these sorts of conversations are the sorts of conversations that are had in the back rooms, the private DMs, all that sort of stuff, which I understand, but why can't we have it not necessarily public? Because you don't want loads of mistakes being shared publicly because the way the internet works, it's going to be misconstrued, it's going to be cut up into different things, and it's potentially dangerous. However, I still think there needs to be psychologically safe environments for these conversations to be had. Otherwise, they won't be had. It's like bringing I'm going to say it. It's like bringing the therapy into the limelight, as it were. A lot of the conversations people have in therapy used to happen in families. Families used to talk. Then families stopped talking. And I know this sounds generalized, but there's research to support this. Generally, families stopped talking as openly. It started with dads not wanting to talking to their kids, with all of the different issues like depression. Oh no, we're not depressed and we're not anxious. It's not the manly thing to do. But then you have the same things with female and with females and other social interactions and issues, and families weren't psychologically safe places for people to talk about it. So there were struggles. There's mental health, etc. And then suddenly now we need loads of therapists and we need loads of people to help with mental health care, et cetera, et cetera. And I would argue that you don't need a professional qualification to help. All you need is a psychologically safe conversation.
Yeah.
I I know it's, oh, you just need this thing. It's just that thing. We found it online. Two people.
Yeah.
A- And I don't think it's that difficult to find if you are willing to be vulnerable and accept that, yeah, it's me. I am talking about me here.
Yeah. It's a scary one. But then it's so cool because you don't have that whole bullshit. Like it is just talking about things going wrong and then finding the way forward. Not necessarily the solution, but just the next step, which is all we can ever really do is just keep going that way.
Yeah. I I feel like the conversations that we could have in communities and in groups, if they're psychologically safe and constrained by guided practitioners, would
Mm.
be beneficial, not only for the practice of the individual, whether it be a business coach, a sports coach, a life coach, but also for anyone else that's looking to learn and understand different philosophies, ideas, ideologies about learning, experiencing. People that have questions about how to parent. How do you do this thing? That for me is also a beneficial conversation. And those can be had in just communities. And I guess from an ecological perspective here, it's not a this is how you parent. There's no instruction. It's not, oh, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to transfer it from my brain to your brain and give you the shared mental model of how to parent. No. It needs to be an ongoing experience because that's how we learn. We learn through various experiences. And if it's I'm going to go to a workshop, I'm going to go to a conference, that's a snapshot in time. And I feel like communities are where the real benefit comes from. But it costs to run communities. It costs time and it costs resources and money. And a lot of people don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So we're going to
Yeah.
try and do it.
Yeah. We're mad. Because
Yeah.
obviously we don't have enough on, Remember, we can only do one thing at a time.
Oh
Is
yeah.
this going to be our primary focus now? We can
Yeah.
only do one thing.
Oh, exactly. You can't split your attention. Split attention effect. No, 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 no.
No,
There's
can't do
too much
that.
cognitive load.
Too loading of the cognitive. Too much. We can't do multiple things at once. We can't have multiple things we like to do.
I would love other people in the conversation to just like jump in and be like, I disagree. But okay, let's have a conversation about it.
That'd be so much fun.
Yep. That's what I'm looking forward to, like speaking to other people. But someone's actually got to set it up. So, and I think it's got to be like speaking, as in actually. Uh, I don't want to say synchronized conversation, but live conversation, not on text, because I feel like when it's text, people can they can quickly search something up or they can think about it for an hour before responding, and that's I don't think as representative of their understanding.
No.
That's how I think we should do tests at school. We should do tests as live oral conversations. I think a student should be tested on their ability through projects, practical projects of them doing something and then explaining it rather than I'm going to write my essay or I'm going to go to a standardized test and do said thing. Are standardized tests useful? Yes. Should we get rid of them? I don't think so. Potentially a controversial answer there, but I don't think so. But when it comes to measuring effective use of abilities and skills, project-based assessments, live project-based assessments, I think are more effective.
Why keep standardized testing? I'm very intrigued to.
Because when it comes to education, if you have 100 students,
Mhm.
desirable difficulty is what we would look for inside of a lesson.
Yeah.
You've got 30 kids in a lesson.
Yeah.
If there isn't any way to standardize their measured metric in some way, how does that one teacher, group the lesson objectives? Like, how do they constrain the lesson in desirable difficulty for that group?
So it's mainly testing the test isn't testing the child, which is currently what it very much is. Like everything's assigned to the child and how good or bad they are. It sounds like it's almost testing the teacher and
It's still testing the child and it's still categorizing the child. It's what you do with it that I disagree with at the moment. Like what we're doing with the exam is saying, okay, this is an A grade student. They should be taught this, 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 and this. No, I disagree with that. They are an A grade student. They should be taught the exact same thing as the F grade student. It's how the practice is designed. So it's not oh, this student can do this, this, and this. It's this student should be taught through this process. These constraints are more appropriate for that individual. Those constraints are more appropriate to that individual. So these standardized tests aren't to help us categorize students for their progress in moving forwards in education. It's to help the teachers shape the practice design.
yeah.
Because when you look inside of a sports session, you can immediately see the boy that can kick the ball and the boy that can't. You can see that. So
Yeah.
when you design practice, you don't say, okay, boy that can't kick a ball, here's 5 balls, you have to kick it in that small goal 10 meters away. No, they're gonna miss the ball, they're gonna fall over, they're going to feel vulnerable because the task is too difficult. And when you do tasks inside of lessons, when you start a lesson, how do you do that with math? Do you just give everyone a quadratic equation and go, right, now solve it? The person that can't add numbers isn't going to be able to do that. So you would build up the lessons. I mean, teachers are already doing this.
Yes.
Teachers differentiate their lessons for the standardized tests. So there's nothing that needs to be changed when it comes to the teacher side, apart from how they're designing practice, but that comes with education of educating educators. But the use of the standardized test beyond practice design is where my issues are.
Yeah.
Because I would still want people inside of lessons to be split up, i.e., A student with F student. I would still want those people in the same class.
Yeah.
So that is where the school is structuring the lessons, trying to help the teacher. But is it helping the teacher? It's helping the teacher give the same sort of instructions to the people, but that isn't necessarily helping practice design. And that's because they're looking at the standardized test as okay, we categorize these students, those students go together.
Yeah.
But maybe the student, again, looking at practice design, that is an A grade, maybe if they explain something to an F grade, it helps them probe out the wrong way to do things. Again, looking back at what I was talking about with the golf swing and looking at differential learning and constraining learning, the A grade student learning how not to do things helps them how to do more complicated things in the future.
Yeah.
And that's exposed through them working with the F grade students because the F grade students don't know how to do the thing.
It's kind of like contextual interference. What you're talking the contextual interference piece of like I know.
Cognitive psychologist, you.
Yeah, but if we look at it from that approach, it is an ecological version of that.
That's how the cognitive psychologist would explain what it is that I've just gone through is contextual interference.
Yeah.
So what's the ecological version of that, John?
What you just explained.
No, I explained the situation. I described the environment. I didn't explain the ecological approach to explaining the situation. Don't just say, I don't know, Danny, you explain it for me.
Yeah, exactly. Come on, do it for me. Like, I mustn't get it wrong, Danny. I can't get it wrong.
You already did. You said you said contextual interference. That is wrong. If you take an ecological approach.
Yes, if you take an ecological approach. It's not contextual interference, but that is the label
if you're using cognitive psychology assumptions, yeah.
So what would it be?
How would you explain individuals working like what essentially we have is we have a situation where you have individuals with high levels of expertise and low levels of expertise working together. How would you explain the benefits of learning environments through an ecological approach?
How would I explain? Well, just adapting it to the individual. It's just
how does the A grade student help the F grade student, and how does the F grade student help the A grade student? Explain through an ecological approach.
Well, the A grade students perceive different. Well, they all perceive different affordances. and all have different constraints. And so they are all attuned to different specifying information. So they help each other because they see different things, well, perceive, their perceptive system is attuned to different information, which the others may not be attuned to. And so it helps. It's kind of almost like deepening the learning experience for each of them. Deepening, I don't like the word deepening, but it is creating an environment where they interact with each other, where they are organizing information together in different ways.
So how does learning happen?
Magic. It's through magic.
Yeah. So
Experience. It is through experiences. Learning happens through experiences. And then the different experiences are beautiful and they come together.
okay, go deeper on the experiences. Different experiences. How different?
How different? How different meaning? Well, it would be the different affordances. They would have different affordances because
You don't have affordances, you perceive
no,
affordances.
you perceive it. Yeah, thank you. Their perception of their affordances or the constraints that they perceive. Do you perceive constraints or do you perceive affordances? Can you perceive constraints?
You perceive affordances through constraints.
Through the constraint. Yeah, that's what I was saying.
So with the experience,
Yeah.
we want variety in experience, correct?
Yes.
Why does more varied experiences help, or does? Does would be the first question. Ecological approach suggests it does.
Yeah.
So why does more variation in experiences help develop skills?
Emergence. Things emerge through the conversation. Well, I suppose that's experience, isn't it? Really thinking about it,
Yeah.
that is actually experience.
Yeah, that is developing skill through, like, the emergence of skills comes through experience.
Comes through experience.
Yeah. So why does more varied experiences help develop expertise?
Well, why does more of them develop expertise? Because there is more opportunity.
Opportunity for what?
Action.
Sort of like the way I'm thinking about this.
It would be no.
Okay.
I would let you do that.
Yeah, I know.
Which is why I'm not going to let you do that.
Okay.
So it's more opportunities. That's fine, but there's more there. It's duh. That was a duh.
That was an obvious observation.
That was a very obvious observation. So what is it? Why? Does it help? Yes. Why does it help? Because it's just more dynamic. There's more there's not more information in the environment. There are more opportunities to attune to differing information.
If what? If there's more varied experiences?
Yeah, if there are more varied experiences, there are more opportunities to attune to different information. Or the information is already there, but there is more stuff.
So what would be more effective? What would be more effective? You have 10 A grade students or 3
they would very much have very similar experiences. There would be no challenge. There would be no conversation. Well, there would be conversation, but the conversation would be, do you like this? Yes, of course. No, do you? No. Like this right here, you have, if you want to put it like this, you're an A grade student and I'm a C plus student, you know?
Yeah.
And so this is the exact experience we're talking about. And if there is an opportunity for, because you already know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And you can guide me. There is that constraining the environment to lead me to information, to attune, not lead me, to attune to differing information. You have a different experience, you have a different, you see different, perceive different opportunities in this conversation than I do. I'm just kind of like stumbling through. But because I'm stumbling through, it's fun. It is definitely fun, but it also, I will attune to the information. I suppose this isn't the right word, but I'm just going to say it for now and then we can translate it. But
interpret.
Yeah. But it's like, because this is effortful, because I'm putting in effort, I will, when I get to where I want to be or where it is, assuming, well, I can't get to a place, there is not an answer necessarily, but I will come to a conclusion in the current experience, in this snapshot of our conversation,
Timescales, yeah.
in the timescales, there will be a, I ain't gonna forget it using non-ecological language. I won't forget it because I would have gone through the whole that I am going through this process of like thinking through why, which I think is almost when you're in an A level, like when it's just A level to A level, you're not thinking why, you already have the answers. The answers are there. The answer is one because we all come to the same answer. Whereas if you have F grade students, they all think, oh, well, this is just too hard. I can't come up with the answer. There is no answer. So the answer is we just fuck around and do nothing. Gross oversimplification, but like we'll just fuck nothing. Instead, there are A level students with one answer that they believe, and then F students with a different answer, and that relationship between the two, there is that like difference, and then there is conversation because the F level students are just like, yeah, well, what about this? Oh, yeah, but pos. What about that? And then it's the A level students going, cool, because of this, and then they would talk about their experience and what they're learning, and it deepens.
So
They are more attuned.
what if the F grade student just copies the work of the A grade student?
So
Right, that's just a case of them getting the answer, though, isn't it?
yeah, but that is the case of them getting the answer. If the teacher wants to, if the purpose of the lesson is to get the answer, then sure, fine, they just copy it.
So how would you design practice with individuals that are vastly different in expertise? Because the person that's less effective will just get the more effective person to do it. So how is that experience effective? How is that experience more effective? Why?
Well, I suppose it depends on the constraint added. So because if it is just to get the right answer, it's not very effective.
So
But
that's
then
practice design.
If the design of the practice is to get the answer, then yes, it's incredibly effective because you're giving the F grade students the ability to have the answer straight away. I skipped because I was like, that's not very effective because I don't think that's effective, just getting the answer. I wouldn't want to just get the answer. I would actually want to think about the whole thing because that's more helpful to me. I'm more interested in how you got to that answer, why you got to the answer, and like what we're doing now, instead of you just giving me the answer, I am muddling my way through it, which is deepening my experience and understanding of what I'm saying and why I'm saying and what I'm doing. That is what that's what we create here. Instead of there is an answer, Danny has an answer, but also just giving me that answer with me, and I would just take that answer and have none of the muddling through of why. And it would be
How would you explain the muddling through ecological terminology?
the muddling through is
Think of direct learning. Just constrain your views a bit here.
thank you. There's too many. So direct learning. Well, it's the figuring out, isn't it? It's the would be attuning to the information. I suppose it would be attuning to the information, but I feel like there's a better thing.
There are some words there that could be used.
Affordances.
I'll just list all the buzzwords.
Let's go through the buzzwords. Here we go. Let's go. Attractor state.
Certainly involved, but it's not what I was
Yeah,
thinking.
I was like, that's kind of involved. The attractor states are involved because
it's all involved because it's embedded.
oh, of course. Obviously, everything's involved, which is why it's very hard to constrain. How many things could it be? All of them.
Yep. So there are three terms that I'm thinking about when explaining essentially everything that you've just gone through. Two of them have three words. And one of them is one word.
All right, cool.
Education of.
Oh, education of, education about.
Education of what?
Education of.
There's an A word there, there's an I word there.
Would it be education? Would it be education of affordances? That's the first reaction. Would it be education of affordances?
No.
You can't educate affordances. Oh, education of attention.
That's one.
And education of Education of and attention and education of I.
The words are very similar.
Attention. Oh, intention.
Yeah. So education of attention and intention, which
Yeah.
is what the individuals in the environments would be doing, because the A-level students' education of attention will be different from the F. And so the F person looking at the A would go, oh, why are you looking at that number, that part of the equation,
Yeah,
that
why does
thing?
that number matter? Why is that
Yeah,
important? Oh, because of
exactly.
these things.
Yeah. Why are you paying
So,
attention to that? And
yeah,
then
why?
the intention, well, my intention, the next step of this process, if you want to look at it linearly, is, well, I need this thing, but to get this thing, I need that thing. So
Yeah.
it's educating intention of whatever the desired outcome would be, behavior would be. And
Mm.
working with the two levels of expertise would help educate those with less expertise where it is. And that also educates those with higher levels of expertise as to where other people may be paying attention to, because you could pay attention to something else that they haven't to get to the same answer. So they could get the same result with a different
Just
education of attention.
yeah. And then that intention piece is what I was talking about with if the intention was just to get the right answer, you just copy. Versus if your intention is to understand or gain understanding or to figure it out yourself, there was that.
Exactly. And then what's the other word as part of direct learning? Jacobs. Jacobs work. Not that it's going to mean anything to most people, but
No, I don't think I've even read his work.
okay. Begins with a C.
Well, would it be constraints?
No.
No, because that would be too easy. That would be.
I guess you could say you do it with tech and software as well.
I do it with tech and software as well.
Yeah, it's sort of similar when you start using something, you need to you need to educate its attention and intention to get a result that a more desired result, as it were. So you'd do something to a thing to help you get a more accurate result.
Copy.
Do you give up? Do you give up? Playing like word search here. Some people are screaming the word.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you for screaming the word. Unfortunately, I can't hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, go on.
Calibration.
Oh,
Education of attention and intention. When you calibrate, put those
yeah,
things together, you gain expertise. And I'm thinking, like, if you look at software, you're calibrating the software to whatever thing that you're looking at. When I think of analogies here, I'm thinking of a microscope. Like you calibrate the attention and intention to focus on whatever time scale you're looking at.
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
So if you are looking for, I don't know, something at times 100, your calibration will be different from times 1,000. This is where fractals and self-organization within fractals comes in, and talk about different timescales of measurement.
all the nerdy, geeky stuff.
Yeah, but going all the way back to this simple, just, oh, do you want to put A grade students with F grade students together? Well, yes, because education of attention and intention allows for varying calibrations, which is why varied experiences can help individuals learn.
Yeah,
That was a real deep dive into something I was not expecting to be talking about here, but yeah, that's the way I think about those sorts of practice designs with using standardized test results.
yeah, that makes sense.
It's logical.
It's logical.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Everything makes sense. It just depends on the perspective you're taking.
Yeah.
So what are you thinking about now?
All the things.
Well, that's not very specific.
I know it's as if I'm trying to find the right thing to think about.
Yeah, there's no right answer.
I know, right? But there is. I've got to get it right now. I spent so long getting things wrong now that I've got to get it right. Otherwise, it's a problem.
The somewhat ironic part here is, even though we're assuming that what I'm saying is accurate,
Yeah.
I could be completely wrong.
Yeah. It could not matter.
No, because we're exploring the environment. We're exploring the Atraxa landscape, developing expertise in explanations, calibrating our own verbal language to communicate varying topics and ideas, to develop expertise. I sound like a dictionary.
You do. You did sound like a dictionary then. very dictionary every
It's like, right, swallow a thesaurus and and now communicate.
I love that. Swallow a thesaurus and communicate. Yeah, it sounds like you most of the
Yep.
time. Oh dear.
It's when you start shitting out words that have more words than characters that more letters than characters that you start getting worried. Yeah, no, there's a lot of words there's a lot of words that could be used that could easily be replaced and substituted, but I don't think it's as accurate when communicating effectively with individuals that have your depth of understanding of the topic.
Mm.
But this again comes back to the communication and communication between individuals. And like I say at the conference, I don't think we would get that. Linking this back to where we started, I don't think we would get that with the BASB conference because I don't think many people will be talking about education of attention, intention, calibrations, attractor states. No.
Whereas we were going to be talking about that today.
But that's where my level of expertise is. That's where my explanations would be. So I would then have to constrain myself with the language, which is fine. I can do it, but it's not as interesting because I don't get to go in depth.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like where I struggle in the business space, because the only other person who can match but go beyond my level of expertise is you in this topic, I should say, in this experience. Well, that's not even true either.
I was going to say, because there's Jeff, there's Julia, there's loads of people.
Oh, but I can't bother those people.
I guess you haven't got a psychologically safe environment for those sorts of conversations and a community that is willing to engage in that.
Yes. Yes.
Well, that's what we're looking to build. So
Exactly. Which would be awesome.
yeah, obviously this is going to come out in like 2 weeks. So maybe we've already had our first meeting by then. Who knows?
Maybe that'd be fun.
Yeah. Right. I think that's it for today. So
Oh, yes.
maybe we'll go to the BSB conference, but maybe we'll just stay home and not spend loads of money.
Maybe.
Right. See you next week.